Hey guys, welcome back to Faith and Fire, God and Country. I am Branden LaNette, and I just want to tell you guys if you need to grab a cup of coffee, I feel like I might need one as well. There is a lot for today's show. Again, recording late. I had two softball games today and six incredible Zoom calls with guests today. I'm in it, y'all. I am in the arena. So if you need coffee, you need water, uh whatever it is. I did make sure I went to the bathroom before I came in here, so I don't think I have to pause or draw this out, so we'll make it before midnight. But yeah, so scrolling the feed in between innings today, in between conversations, I today's one of those days where literally every single thing I've been talking about on the show since episode 1, it's just it's converging in real time. The deep state, the media, the protection networks, the corruption, the spiritual warfare, all of it. And I've got so much to get through that I'm not even going to waste time with a long intro, but I feel like I just did. I'm already rambling, you guys. My brain is like applesauce right now. But just know I love you. I'm so glad you're here, you guys. Thank you for sticking this out with me. If this is your first episode, God bless you because you are jumping into the deep end head first. And I like it like that anyway. Um, Quick plugs, and then we're in it. Freedom and Liberty patches from Super Patch. Okay, this is wearable wellness, pain relief, homeostasis. BrandenLaNette.superpatch.com. If you are dealing with pain or stress or inflammation, your body's feeling off, these patches will support your body's natural ability to regulate itself with no pills, no prescriptions, just the body doing what God designed it to do. And then please go subscribe to my main show, Listen Bitch. Okay, that's my OG podcast for more of the energy on a personal development level, okay? Because the world is loud and it's crazy and it's messy, and I want to give you guys like tangible takeaways, and I just can't hold that capacity on this show and still talk about, everything else here. It's the rebellion season right now, and the seasons always change. As much as I change, that show changes with me, and my audience comes with me, and I love it so much. But if you like the show, you're gonna love that one. Okay, links in description for both of those things. Um and I want to start with something that happened yesterday that I think is one of the it's an important story of the year, and it got buried under everything else because there's so much happening at the same time. But I want you to hear this because this changes everything. Okay, the Department of Justice, our President Trump's Department of Justice just indicted the Southern Poverty Law Center. And I'm going to say that again. I'll try to fill you guys in case you're just like, what are you talking about? Um, the DOJ just indicted the SPLC, that's what they're called, on 11 federal counts, 6 counts of wire fraud, 4 counts of bank fraud, 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering. Acting Attorney General Todd Blanche stood at a podium next to Cash, okay, and Cash is the FBI director. He said these are his exact words. The SPLC is manufacturing racism to justify its existence. I know, some of you are hearing that Southern Poverty Law Center and you're like, okay, some nonprofit I've never heard of, but you have heard of them. You just didn't know it, okay? Every time a conservative organization was labeled a hate group, the SPLC did that. Every time a Christian ministry was put on a list next to the KKK, the SPLC did that. Every time a social media platform banned a right leaning creator for hate speech, they were using the SPLC's definitions. Google used them, Facebook used them, Amazon used them, Apple used them. And I'm saying used as if it's like the past tense, but it's presently happening because I'm in a freaking jail again. Okay, I'm in TikTok jail for talking about this kind of stuff. Um, the SPLC was the gatekeeper of acceptable speech in America. Okay, they decided what was hateful and who wasn't. Big tech bowed down and obeyed them like they were the scripture. Okay, like They were the scripture. It's crazy to me. So let me tell you what they were actually doing behind the curtain, right? Okay, because what's the truth? Since the 1980s, the 1980s, yes, 1900s, 1980. That's a great year, by the way. I was born that year, 1980s, baby. The Southern Poverty Law Center has been running a covert network of paid informants inside white supremacist organizations. It's hard to say that with a straight face because you guys, this this fabricated racism is it blows my mind, okay? They called them field sources, internally referred to as the Fs. On the surface, I mean that sounds noble, right? Like infiltrate the bad guys, gather intelligence, shut them down, help law enforcement. That's the story they told their donors. That's what they put in like the fundraising emails. And that's the narrative that made well meaning liberals write checks for decades. Okay. But here's what they were actually doing with that money. They were paying the leaders. I feel like I'm yelling. Am I yelling? I'm sorry. They were paying the leaders and organizers of these racist groups, not just passively observing. Okay. They're paying them, funding them, the paid members of the Ku Klux Klan. They paid the KKK, the American Nazi Party, the Aryan Nation, the United Klans of America, the National Alliance, which is one of the most dangerous neo Nazi organizations in the country, the National Socialist Movement, something called the Sadistic Souls Motorcycle Club, and American Front. Between 2014 and 2023 alone, and those are just the years we know about, they secretly funneled more than $3 million in donor money to these people. $3 million. One single informant affiliated with the Neo Nazi National Alliance was paid over $1 million across those years. $1 million to a neo Nazi from people who thought they were donating to fight neo Nazis. To hide the payments, the SPLC opened bank accounts. You guys go Google this right now, and I want you to see the group of people I'm talking about who were paying the KKK. Okay, I just want you to go take a look, go take a little gander. Okay, and the irony is not going to be lost on anybody. The SPLC opened bank accounts under fictitious entity names, shell companies, fake organizations. They made false statements to federally insured banks about the nature and purpose of these accounts. They laundered the money through multiple layers so nobody could trace it back. This wasn't sloppy bookkeeping. This was a very sophisticated, multi-decade criminal enterprise. Oh, and it gets worse. It gets so much worse. One of the paid informants was a member of the online leadership chat group that planned the 2017 Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia. Let me give you the context on why this matters so much. Charlottesville was arguably the single most defining event of Trump's first term. It was the rally where Heather Heyer was killed when a white supremacist drove his car into a crowd of counter protesters. It was the event that the media used to brand Trump and by extension, every conservative voter in America. It got me labeled as a white supremacist sympathizer. It was the very fine people on both sides moment that was deliberately taken out of context and used as a weapon for years. Joe Biden literally launched his 2020 presidential campaign citing Charlottesville. It was used to justify deplatforming. It was used to justify censorship. It was used to justify the entire white supremacy is the greatest threat to America narrative that the Biden administration ran on. And an SPLC paid informant helped plan it, attended it at the SPLC's direction, helped coordinate transportation for participants, made racist postings online under their supervision, while being paid with donor money that people gave to fight racism. Do you understand the gravity of this? The rally that was used to condemn half the country as racist was organized by someone on the payroll of the organization that profits from labeling people racist. Okay. They didn't just fail to prevent Charlottesville, they helped make it happen. And then they fundraised off the tragedy. They sent out emails after Heather died asking for more donations to fight the very extremism they were funding. This is the most diabolical scheme I've seen exposed in American public life. This makes Watergate look like a parking ticket. This is an organization that manufactured racial violence, got someone killed, used that death to reshape American politics, raised hundreds of millions of dollars off the narrative they created, and then they use that money and influence to silence, deplatform, and destroy anyone who questioned them. You guys know how many times I get called a racist. Not lately. I haven't really posted anything polarizing, and I left the political group I was in because it was just taking too much of my soul. Um, I all these people were brainwashed by something that was absolutely set up. We are useful idiots. Jesus said in Matthew 7:15, "Watch out for false prophets. They come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ferocious wolves." The SPLC wasn't fighting the wolves. They were the wolves. They were the wolves in civil rights clothing. And they fed on the blood of real victims to sustain their empire. Let me tell you how the playbook works, because it's the same playbook used by every corrupt institution that we have talked about on this show. You create the problem, you sell the solution, rinse, repeat. Pharmaceutical industry creates the diseases through the food supply, that's then they sell you the drug. You know, I literally ran to my Facebook page right now. I scrolled someone I actually know now has this tick allergy. The ticks that they put out into the public to create this allergy to mammal meat, protein, dairy, everything that we know is good for us. Like, they are very anti good for us. I wonder why. It's touching close now, and it's crazy to me. I wish, it's that they get away with this. The military industrial complex destabilizes a region and then sells the weapons to fix it. The media manufactures fear, then sells you the programming that keeps you afraid. The SPLC manufactured racism, and then they sold you an anti-hate brand that made them one of the wealthiest nonprofits in America. They have an endowment of over $500 million freaking. 500 million for a civil rights organization. And now it's being dismantled. Okay, so let's go Cash, right? He's pissed me off. I've been disappointed in him, but like, he's doing some work. He severed all FBI ties to the SPLC back in October when he called them a partisan smear machine. And now Todd Blanche is bringing the federal hammer. Boom, 11 counts, grand jury indictment, forfeiture actions to recover the proceeds of the fraud. Haman is hanging on his own gallows. Go read the book of Esther if you haven't, because this is exactly the pattern. Haman was the most powerful advisor in the Persian Empire. He hated the Jewish people so much that he manipulated the king into signing a decree to exterminate them. I might have already told you guys the story, but I love it, okay? Because I just see it happening everywhere. He built gallows 75 feet tall specifically to hang Mordecai, okay? The one man who refused to bow to him. He had the power, he had the position, he had the narrative, and he was absolutely certain that his plan would succeed. And then our Queen Esther spoke up. One woman, one voice, one act of courage, and everything flipped. And it's part of like this story, her, because I've said it before and I kind of said it joking, where as a woman, I would give up my rights so that liberal women couldn't vote. Like, I've said that out loud, and most of me means that. And then I remember there's people like Esther. And if the Esthers can just speak up, I know there's more of us out there, okay? Anyway, she spoke up. One act of courage, everything flipped. Haman was hanged on the very gallows he built for Mordecai. The decree was reversed, the people were saved, and the man who thought he was untouchable discovered that God had been watching the whole time. That's what's happening to the SPLC right now. They built the gallows for conservatives. They built the infrastructures to destroy anyone who disagreed with them. They labeled ministries as hate groups. They got people fired. They got people banned. They got people's bank accounts closed. And now they are the ones facing 11 federal counts. They are the ones whose bank accounts are being seized. They are the ones whose fraud is being exposed in the assembly. Proverbs 26:27. Whoever digs a pit will fall into it. If someone rolls a stone, it will roll back on them. The pit they dug for conservatives just swallowed them. And I need you to understand the significance of this for your daily life. Okay? Because the SPLC's hate map wasn't just some academic exercise on a website nobody visits. It was the operating system for corporate America's censorship regime. If the SPLC labeled you a hate group, here's what happened. PayPal could freeze your donations. I know people personally that this happened to. Amazon would remove you from Amazon Smile. Apple and Google could pull your app. Facebook and YouTube would suppress your content. Banks could close your accounts. Venues would cancel your events, and employers would fire people for just associating with you. Moms for Liberty. Moms who showed up to school board meetings to ask what their kids were being taught. They were labeled an extremist organization by the SPLC. The Family Research Council, that's a Christian policy organization, was on the same list as the KKK. Charlie Kirk, Turning Point USA, the Alliance Defending Freedom, the Center for Immigration Studies, all labeled hateful by an organization that was literally paying the Ku Klux Klan. And now we know. Now the indictment is public. Now the receipts are on the table. And like we knew, right? We knew that racism was being manufactured. We know that they still do that by making sure your feed is going to piss you off. If you're a white guy, you're going to see a bunch of black on white crime. If you're a black guy, you're going to see a bunch of white pedophiles. Like, I don't know what the deal is, but we just feed each other all this hate, right? It's curated and it works. And then you have these big companies who have manipulated everything and we're just kind of but the receipts are here. Every single company, every platform, every bank that used SPLC's designations to destroy people's lives, they have some explaining to do. Because they outsourced their moral judgment to an organization that was running a criminal enterprise, and real people's lives are destroyed because of this. That's it. Anyone who was ever labeled by the SPLC, to every pastor whose ministry was called a hate group for preaching scripture, to every parent who was called an extremist for questioning what their child was being taught, to every conservative creator who was deplatformed because the SPLC whispered hate speech into Silicon Valley's ear, you were right. They were wrong. And now the whole world is about to see it. The truth will set you free. Baby, that's John 8:32. The same verse Anna Paulina Luna actually quoted when she confirmed David Wilcock's death. The same verse that keeps showing up at every turning point of the season. The truth will set you free. Speaking of David Wilcock, I need to talk about what happened on April 20th because the disclosure community is in shock and the circumstances kind of demand our attention. David Wilcock is dead, 53 years old, okay? Found outside his home in Nederland, Colorado. This is a small mountain town in Boulder County. He is dead from what the Boulder County Sheriff's Office is calling a self-inflicted gunshot wound. You know what's crazy? He literally said, I'll never kill myself. How come these people that say I will never kill myself end up killing themselves? For those who don't know, if you've never heard of David Wilcock, I'll give you a little background. He was, again, these scientists, he was one of the most prominent figures in the UFO disclosure movement in the world, okay? He authored multiple best-selling books. You guys are going to have to look him up. It's like the source field investigations, Ascension Mysteries, Awakening in the Dream. He's on a show my husband watches a lot, or used to watch a lot, Ancient Aliens on the History Channel. He had over 500,000 YouTube subscribers. He ran a show called Cosmic Disclosure on the Gaia Network, which network. Do we need water? Do we need a break? The Gaia Network is a great network. Anyway, most recently he served as the director of advanced technology for Savati Aerospace. That's a real aerospace company working on advanced propulsion systems. Wilcock was not a fringe character posting from his basement. Okay, he's not like all the hate commentators on Facebook. He was a published credentialed. Is that the word credentialed? He had the credentials. Um, he was a very connected figure in the intersection of science and spirituality and government secrecy. And he'd been one of the loudest voices in America demanding transparency about what the government knows about unidentified aerial phenomena, advanced technology, and classified programs that the public's never been told about. Okay. And here's the timeline that has people's hair standing on end. Um, on April 18th, a Friday, David's biographer, Winfrey, died. Wynn authored the reincarnation of Edgar Case, the with David in it was like 2000s, early 2000s. And a filmmaker, Jay Widener, who knew both men, confirmed this on social media and called it a weird twist of fate. On April 19th, Saturday, David posted on social media, "My dear family, I'm not yet sure if I am doing a show tomorrow. I've had some very intense stuff going on this weekend. Either way, I want you all to know how much I love and appreciate you." April 18th, the same day the biographer died, David did a live stream on YouTube. Um, During that stream, he said words that now sound prophetic. "I'm excited to be here. You know, every day that I have on earth is a gift and a blessing, and I'm very grateful for that because, frankly, people are disappearing. Scientists are going missing. It's a little bit scary." 48 hours later, he's dead. The Boulder County Sheriff's Office says deputies were dispatched to his address at 10:44 a.m. April 20th after a 911 call indicating the caller was in a mental health crisis. So deputies arrived, it's like 11 o'clock, and encountered an adult male outside the residence holding a weapon. The man then used the weapon on himself in front of them, supposedly, and was pronounced dead on the scene. And again, I just told you guys about Anna Luna. She's a sitting member of the U.S. House of Representatives. She leads the House Oversight Task Force on declassification, and she is a vocal member of the UAP caucus, confirmed Wilcock's passing on social media. She wrote, "We just learned of the tragic passing of David Wilcock. We are praying for his family and loved ones and the millions of lives he impacted." And then she posts John 8:32. And then she posted something else that should make everyone kind of pay attention. "If you are feeling uneasy about the amount of scientists that have gone missing, died, and recent suicides reference to those scientists and others, you are correct in your intuition." So we have a sitting member of Congress telling you publicly that your suspicion is justified, that the pattern you're seeing is real, that the deaths are connected. And this is the detail that is one of the most haunting because, like I said, in December of 2022, David Wilcock posted on his social media, "I plan on living, not suicidal at all, just concerned about what happens when you prove God is real." Not suicidal at all, just concerned about what happens when you prove God is real. They know God's real. And you know what's been orchestrated our whole lives like this? They're on a mission to make us feel like he's not. That is the same language, you guys, that John McAfee used. That is the same language, Jeffrey Epstein's accusers used. "If I'm ever found dead by suicide, I didn't do it." Like, that's become a genre, a whole category of public figures telling you in advance, if I die and they say it was suicide, don't believe them. Yeah, David may have been genuinely struggling, right? It happens. His friends have said he was going through a painful divorce from his wife. He's dealing with legal pressure related to his work, and he's receiving death threats. He was being cyberbullied. Okay, is the SPLC behind that too? Maybe. He's being harassed online. I know mental health crisis is real. I get that. Depression is real. Despair is real. I would never minimize someone's pain or pretend to know what was happening in his heart in the final hours, but I'm also not going to ignore that this is now at least the 12th person connected to classified scientific network UFO disclosure. This is the thing. They know demons are real. And if they prove that demons are real, and they say aliens are demons, then God is real and everything they've ever done blows up in their face. All of it just blows up in their face. There's nothing they could do. But all of this stuff, related fields, these guys have died or vanished in less than 2 years. Okay. I named 10 of them in a previous episode, and now we're at 12 with David and his biographer. The list keeps getting longer. It's getting longer. The FBI, Cash, has launched a formal investigation into the pattern of deaths and disappearances. Trump himself has publicly stated that the White House is looking into the cases. We've got Eric Burleson and Tim Burchett have formally requested FBI involvement. This is not a conspiracy theory anymore. This is a congressional investigation. And this is what connects this kind of to everything that we're talking about yesterday. The same day that the Wilcock story was consuming the internet, an undercover journalist released hidden camera footage of Andrew Hugg. This is the Army's chief of chemical, nuclear, something, casually just spilling classified national security secrets to a woman he thought was his date. Like, do they not teach these guys to keep it in their pants? How stupid, how ridiculously stupid can anyone be? I'll walk you through what he said on camera. And they're in a restaurant, and he's speaking to a stranger, and there is a camera rolling. I guess he didn't know, but he said the United States still possesses chemical nerve agents, specifically referencing sarin, and that they've stored in Maryland. He is telling her in detail how a female Army chemist recently died from nerve agent exposure because she refused to wear her protective gear. He said she wore Crocs and her own clothes instead of the required hazmat suit. The agent soaked through her clothing and into her skin, and then anything she touched became lethal. People would touch a door, and then people would die. He confirmed that U.S. airstrikes under Operation Epic Fury killed children in Iran. He called it collateral damage. He revealed plans to assassinate Iran's new supreme leader. I wouldn't even know how to pronounce his name if I tried. It starts with an M. And he says if he doesn't change his ways, they're going to kill him. He described how nuclear launch decisions are made in real time, included saying, and I quote, if a Girl Scout gives you a launch message on a box of cookies, if it passes all the checks, go. He described the U.S. satellites and radar network used to detect nuclear launches. He discussed the locations of underground nuclear missiles. Through the journalist organizations, redacted those details from the published video because even they knew that it's just too dangerous to release. The whole time, he kept telling the woman how pretty her eyes were, his actual words. The easiest way to get intelligence is to send a pretty girl to talk to the guy. The irony. I have to resist your eyes. And then he said, your eyes have mesmerized me so much, almost like your unintelligence. He literally identified the honeypot tactic being used on him out loud and still opened his mouth and kept talking. Wow. Within hours, he's escorted out of the Pentagon. He's placed on administration leave. His LinkedIn was scrubbed. The Army confirmed an investigation is underway. Our Defense Secretary Hegseth moved immediately. So on one hand, you have scientists connected to classified programs dying under suspicious circumstances, 12 and counting. And on the other hand, you have the man guarding America's nuclear and chemical arsenal casually leaking classified information to a stranger because she was batting her eyelashes. The system isn't just broken, it is so unbelievably compromised from the inside out. The people who are supposed to be protecting our most sensitive secrets are either being silenced permanently or they're giving those secrets away out for free at a damn Applebee's. Psalm 94, 3 through 7. How long, Lord, how long will the wicked be jubilant? They pour out arrogant words. All of the evildoers are full of boasting. They crush your people, Lord. They oppress your inheritance. They slay the widow and the foreigner. They murder the fatherless. They say, the Lord does not see. The God of Jacob takes no notice. Baby, God does see. God does take notice. And the very next verse, on verse 8, says, "Take notice, you senseless ones among the people, you fools. When will you become wise?" God is watching, and he is calling the fools to account. He is calling the fools to account. Let's do a quick update on what's happening with Iran, because this situation is evolving by the hour, and most of you probably only really get fragments. And to be honest, I could be way off because this was from this morning. So as far as I know, last I knew, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, Trump extended the ceasefire yesterday. My chair kind of rocks back, and this is really nice, but am I too far from the mic? You guys aren't going to be able to help me in real time. Trump extended the ceasefire yesterday after previously saying he wouldn't. The extension will last until Iran submits a proposal and discussions conclude. But here's the context that you're not getting from the headlines. The original 2-week ceasefire was announced on April 7th. It was supposed to expire that night. Through even the White House in Pakistan, I mean, they couldn't agree on the exact time, which tells you everything about how chaotic the diplomatic picture is. Trump did go on CNBC yesterday and said on camera that he expects to be bombing because he thinks that's a better attitude to go in with if the ceasefire expires without a deal. Meanwhile, Iran's parliament speaker, Mohammed, I could say that name because that's the name of everybody, Mohammed, posted that Iran will not accept negotiations under the shadow of threats, and that Iran has prepared to reveal new cards on the battlefield. Iran's Revolutionary Guard threatened to target oil facilities in neighboring countries that allow the U.S. to launch attacks from their territory. Vance was supposed to fly to Pakistan yesterday for a second round of talks. He did not leave Washington. The Iranians haven't confirmed they're coming. Pakistan, stuck in the middle trying to broker this, said as of last night that a formal response from the Iranian side about confirmation of delegation to attend Islamabad peace talks is still awaited. Then at some point last evening, Trump extended the ceasefire anyway, signaling that the door is still open, that he's still willing to talk. But with 28 ships turned back by the U.S. Navy blockade, an Iranian vessel seized full of missile components, and a new supreme leader in Tehran who hasn't proven he's any different from the one the U.S. allegedly assassinated, the clock is ticking. And the seized ship is important. It was called the Tuska, an Iranian flagged cargo vessel intercepted in the Gulf of Oman. And on board was that a bunch of stuff to make ballistic missiles. Okay. They were shipping missile components through a lane they claimed was for civilian commerce. And the U.S. Navy caught them red-handed. I do believe I already told you guys about that too. But again, it corrects directly to what Andrew leaked on camera, right? The U.S. has plans to kill Iran's new supreme leader if he doesn't change course. Whether that leak is accurate or not, the fact that a nuclear official would say it out loud in a restaurant tells you how serious the administration is taking this. This is what I want you to understand about the spiritual dimension of this moment. Trump is simultaneously reading the Bible from the Oval Office and commanding the most powerful military on earth. He extended to ceasefire and he expects to resume bombing. He is seeking peace and preparing for war. I know that makes you uncomfortable. We don't want the war. Christians who believe in peace at all costs look at that and struggle, but you shouldn't, because that's exactly how the God of the Bible operates. Go read Ecclesiastes 3. There is a time for everything and a season for every activity under the heavens, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to tear down and a time to build, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. Did you guys sing that in your head? A time for war. Go read that again. It's in your Bible. God is not a pacifist. He hates violence, but he authorizes it when justice demands it. He sent the Israelites into battle. He commanded Joshua to take Jericho. He empowered Gideon to defeat the Midianites with 300 men. He put a sword in David's hand to cut down Goliath. And in Revelation 19, Jesus himself returns as a warrior, riding a white horse, wearing a robe dipped in blood, with a sword coming from his mouth to strike down the nations. The Jesus of the New Testament is the same God of the Old Testament. He did not get soft. He did not evolve. He offers mercy first, always first. But when mercy is rejected, y'all, justice comes, and it comes with fire. Trump is giving Iran the Nineveh option. Remember Jonah? God sent Jonah to the city of Nineveh, one of the most wicked cities in the ancient world, and Jonah had a message. 40 days and Nineveh will be overthrown. And the king of Nineveh did something extraordinary. He repented. He put on a sackcloth. He ordered the entire city to fast and pray, and God relented. He did not destroy them. That's option A. Come to the table, make a deal, change your ways, and you get to live. Option B is Pharaoh. God gave Pharaoh 10 chances, 10 plagues, 10 opportunities to let his people go. And Pharaoh hardened his heart every single time. And on the 10th refusal, the firstborn of Egypt died. And when Pharaoh still came after the Israelites at the Red Sea, God drowned his entire army. Iran gets to choose Nineveh or Egypt, repentance or destruction, the table or the battlefield, but the window is closing, and Trump is making it very clear that he's prepared for either outcome. Y'all, pray for peace, prepare for war. That is biblical, that's reality, and that is where we are. And let's bring this closer to home, because while the world is watching Iran and the SPLC and the missing scientists, the states are where the real war for the soul of this country is being fought every single day. This week's results are a roller coaster. Everything I've said, and this is the last episode for the week. Virginia voted, if you guys remember, on a constitutional amendment that would allow the state legislature to redraw congressional districts before the midterms. I talked about this. I told you to vote. The Democrat controlled legislature proposed a map. Okay. That would have given Democrats 10 out of 11 congressional seats in a state where nearly half the population votes Republican. That is not representation. This is political extinction. Okay. The amendment passed, voters approved it, but, and this is huge, the Virginia court circuit has ruled that the Democrat specific 10-to-1 map is unconstitutional, and they have issued an injunction blocking the results from being certified. The fight is not over. The courts are checking the power grab, and this is exactly why we have a judiciary. This is exactly why separation of powers matters. And this is exactly why your vote in state and local election matters more, way more than your presidential vote. Here's what a lot of people don't understand. The president can sign executive orders and set the tone, but the laws that affect your daily life, your kids' schools, your property taxes, your local police, your zoning, your healthcare options, those are made at the state and local level. Congress matters, but your state legislation matters more for how you actually live. And if you're not showing up for those elections, you're handing your life to people who do not share your values. Matthew 25, the parable of the talents. The master gives 3 servants different amounts of money to manage. Okay. 2 of them invest and multiply their talents. The third buries his in the ground because he's afraid. And the master calls him wicked. Not lazy, not cautious. He used the word wicked. You wicked, lazy servant. Your vote is a talent. It was given to you by God through the blood of people who died for this country. I want to make a poster that says this, that you can hang in your room. If you bury it, if you stay home because it's inconvenient or you don't feel like it, you're ignoring part of the calling. You're signing off on the stuff that doesn't align. Your silence is complicity. Blood on your hands. Okay? There is something worth celebrating. Tennessee just became the first state in the nation to ban teachers from using honorifics that don't align with students' biological sex. No more No more calling a boy miss or a girl Mr. A male is a Mr. A female is a Mrs., Miss or Miss. Like common sense. It's crazy that this is a conversation. That's it. That's the list. State Rep Aaron Mayberry, I think is the name, said objective truth matters. We must stand to protect the most innocent in our society, which is our children, from those who seek to manipulate and confuse them into an ideological agenda. Thank you, Tennessee, for representing common sense. But thank you for having the courage to say it out loud, what most people are thinking. And what, I mean, I can't be the only one that's speaking the truth, but y'all are so afraid of getting canceled. Stop sitting on it. And this matters beyond just pronouns, you guys, because it's not really about pronouns, it's about authority. It's about who gets to define reality for your kid. Is it you, the parent? Is it God, the creator? Or is it a 24-year-old teacher with a nose ring and a gender studies degree who decided that 5,000 years of human civilization was wrong and they know better? When a teacher calls a boy miss in a classroom, they are not just using a word, they are claiming authority over that child's identity. They are saying, I know who you are better than your parents do. I know who you are better than God does. And that is a spiritual claim. That is a declaration of sovereignty over a child's soul. No teacher, no government employee, no institution has that right. In Deuteronomy 6 through 7, these commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. God gave parents the authority to teach their children, not the state, not the school system, not a curriculum designed by people who hate everything you believe in. It's the parents. Thank you, God. I say that with my whole chest because I get to homeschool. I have been blessed. No matter what the sacrifice is, I know that it's been a gift. Tennessee just reinforced that, and every state should be following. While Tennessee is getting it right, Michigan, you guys know I'm in Michigan, right? Ugh, it's so embarrassing to say. Michigan is getting it so catastrophically wrong that I genuinely wonder if the Democrats in my state have any moral compass left at all. Not a single Michigan Democrat in the House Judiciary Committee voted for House Bill 5425. And I know you're just dying to know what that bill does. It would ban registered sex offenders from working at businesses that provide services to minors. That's it. That's the whole bill. There is no hidden anything in there. That's the whole bill. If you are a convicted sex offender, you should not be allowed to work at a daycare or a school, a children's camp, a tutoring center, or any other business that serves kids. And every single Democrat on that committee voted no. Not a few of them, not one or two of them, every single Democrat. I mean, just think about what kind of moral framework produces that vote. What kind of ideology looks at a bill like that and says, keep pedophiles away from children, and says, nah, we're good? What kind of person goes to sleep at night after casting that vote and doesn't hear the screams of every child who's ever been abused by a person in a position of trust? That is not politics. Again, spiritual warfare. This is Romans 1 playing out in real time, okay? Paul wrote this 2,000 years ago. And it sounds like he's describing Michigan in 2028. He says, furthermore, just as they did not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God, so God gave them over to a depraved mind so that they do what ought not be done. They have become filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, depravity. They are full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, and malice. They are gossips, slanderers, God haters, insolent, arrogant, and boastful. They invent ways of doing evil. They disobey their parents. They have no understanding, no fidelity, no love, no mercy. Although they know God's righteous decree that those who do such things deserve death, they not only continue to do these very things, but also approve of those who practice them. They not only continue to do these things, they approve of those who practice them. That's the vote. That's the Michigan Democrat Caucus approving of the practice of putting sex offenders near children. My brain wants to say, Lord, have mercy. But do I mean that? It's an automatic, it just comes out like, Lord, have mercy. Yeah, I don't think so. Like, I don't think so. I don't think so. And I haven't talked about this case yet either. And I know it's everywhere. I know you guys know about it. It has just been horrific details. And, you know, I'm not sure why I held off. I honestly, it was just, I guess, a feeling, you know, God is like, hold off on this. But I want to talk about Athena Strand, okay? And yeah, this is going to be heavy. So if you have young children in the room, which I doubt you do when I'm talking, because I just yelled, and I'm sure you don't want them hearing that, might be a good time to put the headphones in. Because what happened to this little girl is one of the most horrific crimes in that we're seeing. Okay, I can't believe that it's in historically because you guys, this is happening to kids every day. All right, but this trial is very public, so we're getting like real time details. Okay, it's happening in Fort Worth, Texas. In case you don't know what I'm talking about, if you're smart and you stay off social media, Athena Strand was 7 years old. She had blonde hair, smile that collided. She's cute as shit, you guys. Like the sweetest girl. And, you know, God, please help me to not cry and lose my shit. Maybe that's why I haven't talked about it. Um, Anyway, she lived in Paradise, Texas. It's a tiny town, fewer than like 500 people, about 60 miles northwest of Dallas. She liked Barbies, right? Of course. She liked running around on her daddy's land. Her stepmom, I think it's just really her mom, is what I'm gathering. This is her mom, but it wasn't her biological mom. But that's her mama because I seen her. I've seen her with this, you know, fight for this little girl and go through this process. That's her mama. But she described her as a little girl who got to run wild and free in her country, in the country. November 30th. This happened in 2022, so it's kind of old. But again, it's old. It happened, and I guarantee in 2022, when he got arrested, everybody wanted to see justice happen, right? Overnight. It is now 2026, and we're finally getting to see that. You guys, the system is slow. It's bogged down. I get that it's intentional, but please, you know, even with things that are currently happening, I want y'all to understand that justice does take time sometimes. So anyway, this FedEx driver, and I'm not even going to say his name because he doesn't get that honor on the show, but he pulls up to her father's house to deliver a Barbie, you guys. It was a box of You Could Be Anything Barbie dolls, which I've bought for my kids, you know. This was Athena's Christmas present. And the man who delivered her Christmas present kidnapped her and killed her. And here's what the prosecution is going through. This guy admitted to the killing. So we know the basic facts. He hit Athena with his van while backing out of the driveway. She was reportedly not seriously injured. And there's video where she's like, you know, you can kind of see her sitting up with him and they're talking. But instead of calling 911, instead of knocking on the door and telling her father, he panicked. He grabbed her. He put her in the van. And the first words he said to her were, "Don't scream or I'll hurt you." Those were the first words a 7-year-old girl heard from the man who was about to take her life. "Don't scream or I will hurt you." He strangled her. A 200-pound man strangled a 67-pound child. The prosecution told jurors they would see and hear what a 200-pound man can do to a 67-pound child. And this audio was played. Okay. The courtroom cried. The family left. Like, jurors cried. It was horrific. I do recommend not listening. Okay, do not listen to any of it because it just all of it you'll be sick for days. After he kills her, dash cam footage from inside the FedEx van, because there were cameras, right? He did cover them at some point, but the sounds, that's what they played. But it shows him stopping at a gas station. He gets out, he buys a spray bottle and a roll of paper towels, goes into the back of the van, he scrubs the floor. Athena threw up during the attack. She had soiled herself. He cleaned it up like he was wiping down a counter. Then he called his boss. It kind of smells like barf in here, he said. Those were his actual words casually. He lied and said he ate a truck stop hamburger that was pink in the middle and it made him throw up. So his boss told him he hoped he was feeling better and he said he'd be at work the next day. Then he called someone else and told the same lie about the burger. Then he smokes a cigarette and then he parks the van at FedEx and goes home. He searched Google that night, Paradise Missing Girl, then do FedEx truck cameras constantly record. He lied to police for 2 days about where her body was, and it took rangers to finally break him. He led them to a spot off a rural road where he'd hidden her in a few feet of water, less than 10 miles from where she lived. His mother called him in jail, and she asked, "What did you do? Did she die on her own?" And then Tanner, I said his name. I just hope you didn't do anything weird to the little girl. Those were her words. And so he pleads guilty to the capital murder on April 7th. That's the first day of this trial. Okay, this started April 7th. The jury is now in the sentencing phase. And I guess that's where I'm at now about this, because they're deciding between life in prison and death penalty. And this week, the defense is parading medical experts who say that he had significant underlying health and developmental issues. And I want to say what every parent watching this trial is screaming. He was impaired enough to plan. He was impaired enough to grab her. He was impaired enough to silence her. He was impaired enough to kill her. He was impaired enough to clean the evidence. He was impaired enough to lie to multiple people on the phone, impaired enough to Google whether cameras recorded him. He was impaired enough to show up at work the next day and act normal. He was impaired enough to lie to police for 2 days. That's not impairment, you guys. That's a predator covering his tracks, and no amount of defense team psychiatry should save him from the consequence. Deuteronomy says, "Show no pity. You must purge from Israel the guilt of shedding innocent blood so that it may go well with you." Show no pity. And something I've been saying, okay, just connecting this here, that Idaho bill, the death penalty for child rape, 63-0. They voted for that. Tennessee is getting it right. States stepping up to say enough, because Athena Strand is why those bills exist. Athena Strand is the name. She is the face. She is the 7-year-old girl in the "you can be anything" Barbie pajamas who will never be anything because a monster decided her life was worth less than his panic. And there's a meme, there's this meme going around. I've seen it. It's not even a meme. It's like a fact, right? It's floating around, and it's saying that, scientists are calling for a ban on boiling lobsters alive because a study says they can feel pain. Which is incredibly interesting to me, because now can we run that same pain sensitivity study like on newborn babies too? Can we do that? Oh, they have. Oh, and they do know that babies feel pain. Awesome. That is the complete hypocrisy of this culture, distilled in 2 sentences. We will mobilize to protect the nerve endings of a crustacean. We will hold congressional hearings about the welfare of a lobster, but we will fund with $832 million of your tax dollars the dismemberment of 434,000 human babies who could feel everything. We let these predators go in and out of the system, criminals, violent offenders. We continue just to turn our head. Do we care about our babies? Do we care about the people in our communities? Do we want our cities to be safe? I do not understand. The world is upside down. Isaiah called it thousands of years ago. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. Romans described it, God gave them over. Jesus predicted it as it was in the days of Noah. Like, we're living in it, and the only way out is through. That's it. I know that justice is going to come, right? And as humans, we want to see what's the biggest comment. And my husband says this all the time. I think he's one of those keyboard warriors too that says the wood chipper, the wood chipper, the wood chipper. Lots of wood chipper comments. Like, we want to see that. We want to see the justice. And we may not get to. I mean, this guy that messed with Athena, we want to see the blood, right? Nobody's going to flinch. Nobody's going to grimace. Nobody's going to think it's, that is pure justice to watch his blood drip on the streets. That is justice. That is peace. That is not going to bring her back, but it also means that isn't going to happen to another girl. He doesn't get to keep hurting people. He is done. he has done. I just want you to know that God is good and justice is coming, and maybe we aren't going to get to see it in the way that we want to see it, but I know how he works. And yeah, that case, I'll keep you guys posted about what happens right now. The defense kind of makes me sick. Like, how can anybody sit on the defense of this? The guy already confessed, but it's where we are. Shifting gears, I'll get a little personal because I promise you guys that, the show is for me as much as it is for you. I get to learn and grow and wrestle with things in real time. Okay. Part of that wrestling brought me to a topic that a lot of Christian, I don't really hear any Christians talking about it. Um, especially Christian podcasters. But then again, I'm not most Christian podcasters. I'm in my own little box, little arena. I microdosed psilocybin for a time and I loved the results. In fact, if you binge my Listen Bitch podcast, I talked about it weekly. I probably talked about it in every episode because it was just so great, and I promoted it and I was like, I'm all about this. And before you turn this off, okay, don't write me off as some hippie who fell off the biblical wagon. I just want you to hear me out, okay? Because this could change your life or the life of someone that you love, and I think God would want me to talk about this. The fact that microdosing, for me, it's a very minuscule, like, you don't ever feel anything. There's a whole thing to it. Anyway, psilocybin is a naturally occurring compound. It's found in certain species of mushrooms. It has been used by indigenous cultures across the Americas, Africa, and Asia for thousands of years in spiritual healing and practice. The Aztecs called it Tenochtitlan, which translates to the flesh of the gods, and it's not because they worshiped the mushroom, but because they recognized that what happened in the spirit when they consumed it brought them closer to whatever their divine was. Okay. While we know I don't agree with all of those beliefs, I'm saying there is something core that grounds you with this product. Modern science, and I'm talking peer-reviewed, published, replicated, legitimate science from like Johns Hopkins, NYU, Imperial College, like all of these places. MAPS, that's the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies. They've shown that psilocybin can reduce symptoms of treatment-resistant things like depression, anxiety, PTSD, addiction, end-of-life distress. It increases neuroplasticity. And if you listen to my other show, y'all, I'm a brain nerd anyway. And this was my biggest thing, right? It that was what I was obsessed with. And that means it helps your brain form new pathways, like new connections, new patterns of thinking, new ways of processing information that was previously stuck. So everybody's kind of stuck in this default mode network, and your brain is going over and over, and you just kind of ruminate. So you think about, especially military and stuff, they come back and what have they been in for so long, and they're going to ruminate, and it's hard to acclimate to this life. If you could just help their brain help itself, that's all you're doing. And at a microdose level, that's what I did. There is no hallucination. You do not trip. You do not lose control. You can't even feel anything. Like, there is no high. It doesn't make me feel like not myself, right? What you feel is so subtle. It's just like the fog is lifting, and the noise. I have a very neurospicy brain, so like the noise just gets quiet, and the anxiety that usually runs in the background like a program I can't close, it just stops. And I felt like when I was doing it for the first time in a long time, I could actually think, I could actually feel, I could sit with myself without wanting to run, and it changed everything for me because I was so stuck in that rumination. I just needed a break, and now I do the work. I do the work on my own. I figured out the neuroplasticity hack, and it's something that, I can, with my conscious mind, I can work through. And I'll be very clear, you guys, this is my experience. I'm not a doctor. I'm not prescribing anything, but this brought me to that reality. I went through this whole experience of I was off the rails in the spiritual land. I was looking for God in everything but myself. I was looking for that ego death, for that big spiritual movement, and I ended up working with demons. I ended up doing Reiki and card reading. I was doing all these things and very lost, and God saved me. came through very clear, and he was like, burn it all down. So you guys, I burned down my whole business, and I was super depressed, and I just felt incredibly lost, and I just kept staying stuck in that rumination. I wasn't good enough for my life. I wasn't good enough for my future. I wasn't good enough for my family, not good enough for my kids, not good enough for God. None of that. I started microdosing, and it brought me closer to God, not further away, but closer, because the first time in years I could sit with that scripture and actually hear it. You know, I wasn't just reading words on the page. My first year of reading the Bible, I feel like it was just words on the page, but I could hear them in my spirit, in the deepest places, in places that I'd been protecting with walls of sarcasm and busyness and control. The armor came off, and God is standing there waiting, just waiting, like he'd been waiting for so long, like he's knocking on a door, and I'd been pretending I wasn't home. Um, but there was, these incredible moments of just release, like to forgive myself, to, be able to rebuild. And it took me a long time to want to trust myself to work with people again, because when I was doing the Reiki, I brought people in it. I called demons into the room, and I didn't know, again, at the time, what I was doing. All of the witchcraft, all of the new woo stuff, all of the new age stuff, you guys, is very dangerous. It is not God. Um, your ancestors are not talking to you. And I say that with all the love. They're not. I love you so much, but those are demons. Um, and I literally, I almost died in that experience. I am doing a Zoom. We're doing Reiki. I feel these spirits coming in, and I'm telling myself, like, these are angels, because I pray to God. I believe in Christ, uh, and I can't even explain it physically in words what really happened, but I was not okay. And I go out and I tell my husband, like, I'm dying. And he's like, you're talking, you're walking, you're breathing. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but something's really wrong. It was a wild disconnect. And so that's where God came through completely. Um, a couple months later, that's when I find the psilocybin and I start microdosing. And I know not to go down the rabbit hole of, that spiritual awakening, right? I just want the neuroplasticity. I want the neuroplasticity. Um, but it was amazing, because I let go of so much stuff in that time, as I reprogrammed my brain, and I realized, that God was there the whole time. He met me in the mess. And I know some of you are going to push back. Like Branden, the Bible says, don't be drunk, don't be under the influence. You guys, I still have cocktails now and then, right? And I feel way more having a glass of wine than I ever felt on microdosing psilocybin. So I want to make it very clear, I never got high, never tripped, never hallucinated, never anything. It just quieted the noise enough for me to rewire my brain. So I hear you. Okay, be sober minded, be watchful. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking someone to devour. That verse is real, and it does matter. But I'm going to ask you a question. Are you sober minded right now? Because if you're on SSRIs, which alter your brain chemistry every single day, not in a good way, this is not neuroplasticity. Are you sober minded? If you're drinking wine with every dinner, which Jesus himself provided at a wedding, are you sober? If you're taking Ambien to sleep, or Adderall to focus, or Xanax to calm down, all of which are legal, FDA approved, and far more addictive and mind altering than microdosing psilocybin, are you sober minded? Or have we just decided that pharmaceutical mind alteration is acceptable and natural mind alteration isn't? I'm not here to judge your medication. I'm not doing that. If your SSRIs are helping you, then praise God, take it. But I am here to challenge the hypocrisy of a culture that will pop a pill made in a lab by a company that profits from your sickness and call that medicine, but then condemn a mushroom that grown from the ground that God made, and we call it sin. God gave us every seed-bearing plant on the face of the whole earth, and every tree that has fruit with seed in it. He says they will be yours for food. He put the psilocybin mushrooms in the dirt, even the ayahuasca. Okay. I can't get on the ayahuasca train. That's not my business. I think we came here for the human experience. Let's keep that here. We don't need to let our souls travel into other dimensions with shamans. But again, no hate, just not for me. Anyway, he put this, what's called ibogaine, maybe, in a plant in West Africa. He put cannabis in the fields. He designed them. He grew them. He didn't put asterisks in Genesis. Okay. But speaking of this ibogaine, this is why I'm bringing this up. You guys are probably like, man, she really went off today. Also, it's super late at night, but Joe Rogan just revealed what Trump actually said to him at a UFC event. That was a huge thing going around, what they were talking about. The media ran with Trump confronted Rogan at UFC. This is what actually happened. Rogan texts Trump on a Friday about ibogaine. For those who don't know, that is the plant-based compound. It's derived from root bark of the West African shrub. It has been shown to essentially reset the brain's addiction pathways. So veterans with severe PTSD and opioid addicts have been traveling to Mexico and Central America to receive this treatment because it's not approved in the United States. Um, all of them are describing the experience as life-changing, like years of therapy compressed into one single session. All of a sudden, the withdrawal symptoms stop, the cravings stop, the nightmares from the PTSD stops. So Rogan asked Trump about FDA approval, and Trump said, in his words, it's done. He wasn't like, let me look into it. No, I'll have my people call your people. No, we need to study it further. 2 words, it's done. The next week, Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick dedicated $100 million to the Texas ibogaine initiative. Trump greenlit expanding ibogaine access to soldiers, police officers, first responders, and anyone struggling with PTSD and addiction. He heard about it on a Friday. He approved it on a Friday, confirmed it Saturday, press conference the following week. That is what the media was calling a confrontation, okay? Because the truth that the president of the United States just fast-tracked a natural, okay, here's my thing. He is in the machine. I don't think he's a part of it because he does so many middle finger things to the machine. Big Pharma is losing their ever-loving minds, okay? He just fast-tracked a natural, plant-based, potentially life-saving treatment for veterans. It doesn't fit the narrative. A compassionate Trump is an inconvenient Trump, so they invent conflict where there was none. 22 veterans kill themselves every single day, you guys. 22 of the men who gave themselves their time, their sound minds for our freedom, 22 a day. That's not a statistic. That is a national emergency. That is a national sin. We sent these men and women into hell. We break their minds and their bodies, and then we give them pills that make them zombies, and we call it treatment. And now, finally, we have a president who hears about something that actually works, and he says, let's do it before lunch is over. Say what you want. Say what you want. When has another president ever done something like this? Say what you want. And I'm not saying everyone should go take it. Maybe not even psilocybin, but I can tell you that the microdosing statistics are real, and I'm not alone on that. You can look up your own studies. Absolutely, they should be used with intention and guidance. And you should know, I'm not talking about partying. I'm not talking about recreational use. I'm talking about healing. I'm talking about using what God put in the ground to repair what the world broke. There's a big difference. And the biggest opponents of natural medicine are, surprise, the same people who profit from synthetic medicine. Big Pharma doesn't make money when a veteran takes this ibogaine once and never needs another prescription. What happens to our drug addicts, y'all? To our addicts that get access to this, the streets start becoming clean. And then all of these homeless drug addict initiative slush funds have to disappear because what's their excuse now? This is a big F you to the system. This is a big F you to the deep state. This is a big F you to everything that has its hands in your destruction. Big Pharma makes that money when veterans take SSRIs and sleep aids and anxiety meds and pain pills for the rest of their lives. Follow the money, always follow the money. And I mean, the elite protection networks right now, because this is a thread that runs underneath everything that we discuss on the show. And I want you to understand, like, what we're watching now with this SPLC indictment, the congressional resignations, the Epstein revelations, the scientist deaths, it's all connected by one central reality. There is a class of people in this world who believe they are untouchable. They run the institutions, they fund the movements, they manufacture the narratives, they protect each other, and they've been doing it for so long across so many generations that they've built an infrastructure of impunity that no single president, no single election, no single investigation will ever be able to fully dismantle, okay? And there are receipts. 3 members of Congress have resigned in the last 9 days, right? Slawwell, after the sexual assault allegations with underage girls. Gonzalez resigned the same day with same sexual misconduct yesterday. Shelia, she's a Democrat. She resigned at 1:30, 30 minutes before the House Ethics Committee was about to recommend sanctions that would have led to her expulsion. McCormick found guilty of 25 ethics violations. She stole $5 million in the FEMA disaster relief funds, money that was supposed to help the Americans with COVID. Your money. And she has the audacity to call it a witch hunt, y'all. But all these resignations, you know, sexual misconduct, financial fraud, it's unprecedented. The last time, you know, I said this, a member was expelled was in 2023. And before that, you have to go back a very long time. Ethics committee chairman said afterward, the message I hope it sends is that we're going to hold members accountable and that this body is willing to expel members who violate the rules and bring distrust, disruption upon the institution. Here's my question. Like, where were these guys for the last 40 years? Because this behavior didn't just start. It didn't just start. You know, Slawwell was sleeping with a Chinese spy and sitting on intelligence committees for decades. The SPLC was funding the KKK since the 80s. The Page program, remember that? That was shut down because congressmen are assaulting teenagers. The rot's generational. Cleaning it up is going to take more than 3 resignations and 1 indictment. It's going to take sustained, relentless, multi-administration, multi-decade commitment to accountability. We have a disruptor. That's it. And he's doing his part. He's the wrecking ball. But one man, no matter how powerful, cannot fix a system that took a century to break. And the next president is going to have to continue the work. And the one after that, and the one after that, until the culture of Washington changes so fundamentally that corruption becomes the exception instead of the rule. Guess where that starts, babe? That starts with us, with voters, with citizens who show up to every election, not just the presidential ones, with parents who teach their kids about civics and character, with churches that preach righteousness instead of, you know, relevance and pop culture, with podcasters who refuse to shut up even when the algorithm punishes them. Nehemiah rebuilt the wall, but he didn't do it alone. He organized the people. He assigned each family a section of the wall closest to their own house. Everyone built their part. Everyone guarded their section, and when the enemies came, and they came, just like they always do, Nehemiah told the builders to hold a sword in one hand and a tool in the other, build and fight at the same time, because the enemy attacks the hardest when you're making the most progress, and that's where we are. We are rebuilding the wall, and the enemy is attacking, and we have to hold the sword and the trowel at the same time. And a post I saw, I really think I saw this last week, and I'm going to share this with you because I think it articulates something that I've been feeling, and I really didn't put it into words. But there's a pastor named Josh Howerton. He said, if an ideology convinces you to avoid marriage and children for travel and career, if it convinces you to avoid God and church and faith because they're oppressive, bigoted, and narrow-minded, if it channels your energy into rage at the system instead of building and accomplishing, convinces you that everyone and everything is oppressive and there's no hope, if it replaces pastors with therapists and religion with therapy and teaches you to build your own identity on any deviation you have from how societies have functioned for 5,000 years, it will function as an extinction level event for your mental health. And then he posted the data from the U.S. General Social Survey, the percentage of young people under 40 that are diagnosed with mental health problem broken down by political affiliation. This was crazy to me. Extremely liberal, 56% of them have mental health issues. Liberals, 41%. Moderate, we're at 35%. Slightly conservative, 30%. Very conservative, 15%. 56 versus 15. The more liberal the ideology, the sicker the person. That is not my opinion. That's a peer-reviewed survey data. And it tells you everything you need to know about the world view and the fruit it produces, and which one is producing destruction. Be the fruit of the Spirit. The love, the joy, the peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self control. That's a simple checklist. That's how you evaluate any ideology, any movement, any worldview. Does it produce love? Does it produce joy? Does it produce peace? Or does it produce anxiety, rage, depression, confusion, and identity crisis? The numbers speak for themselves. The ideology that says God is fake, your gender's a choice, your family's oppressive, your country is evil, and the system designed to destroy you, it produces 56% of mental illness in its most devoted followers. The worldview that says God is real, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, your family matters, and your nation is worth fighting for, they're at 15%. The fruit tells you everything. Jesus said, you will know them by their fruit. That's the fruit. I'm telling you to weigh it. Okay. I told you guys, this show is about conspiracy theories and meeting truth and faith meeting fire. And I feel like I covered so much ground tonight. I didn't even intend to do that. This is why there were points in my life where the training wheels of having a co-host were great, because I was on a time crunch. I'm not even watching the clock tonight. But yeah, the SPLC, Organization American Trusted to Divine Hatred, funding hatred. UFO research said he wasn't suicidal. He dies 2 days later with his biographer. Nuclear chief leaking classified information to a stranger because she had pretty eyes. Michigan Democrats letting sex offenders be around our babies. 7-year-old girl just murdered waiting for a Christmas present. 3 members of Congress resigning in 9 days. Iran ceasefire, it's hanging by a thread. All of this. Like, this is just a week of information, okay? There's a woman on Facebook, that I think she kind of captured this perfectly. She referenced the story of the quails in Numbers 11. And she said, did you know there's a part of the Bible where God will have enough of our nonsense and just give us into our own delusions and demands, like the story of the quails? I didn't think I'd see that. The quails are coming. They're already here. America demanded a godless culture, and God said, fine, here it is. Here is your 56% mental illness. Here is your 434,450 abortions. Here's your school shootings and your fentanyl crisis and your children being trafficked across a border that nobody was guarding. Oh, here's your lobster rights and your pronoun mandates and your sex offenders in daycare. Here's everything you asked for. Eat it until it comes out of your nostrils. And here's the hope. And I refuse to end without hope, because that is not who our God is. The same God who sent the quails, he also parted the Red Sea. The same God who plagued Egypt also provided manna in the wilderness. The same God who destroyed Sodom also saved Lot. The same God who judged Israel also restored them over and over and over again, because judgment is not his goal. Restoration is his goal. He judges to wake us up. He disciplines to redirect us. He lets us hit the bottom so we finally look up, okay? That Second Chronicles, the verse that Trump read from the Oval Office yesterday, is still on the table. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and I will heal their land. You guys, that offer is not expired. The door hasn't closed. The prayer hasn't been withdrawn. God is still waiting, still patient, still willing, and he's still able, but we have to do our part. You have to humble yourself. You have to pray. You have to seek his face. You have to turn, not just acknowledge the problem. You have to turn from it. You have to change direction, repent, live differently, parent differently, vote differently, consume differently, speak differently. And then he will hear from heaven. He will forgive and he will heal. I believe he's about to do something none of us are ready for, and I want to be standing in the right place when he does. Faith, fire, God, country, in that order always. I love you guys. I will see you next week. Please, hey, go share this episode with someone who needs to hear it, okay? Don't just consume it, distribute it. That's how we win.